what if everything you thought you knew about money was, I don't know, actually holding you back? What if the financial advice that's been drilled into you, your entire life, the stuff that feels so safe, so sensible, so conventional, what if that was precisely what was keeping you from real wealth and maybe more importantly, from real financial freedom? Sounds pretty provocative, doesn't it? Well, today on the deep dive, we are not just scratching the surface. We are really tearing into one of the most influential and, yeah, often controversial books ever written about personal finance, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And look, this isn't just some book about how to balance your checkbook. It's framed as a radical mindset reset, like a financial earthquake designed to shake up your deepest assumptions about how money works, and maybe more importantly, how you should work with money.
Oh, absolutely. And listeners should prepare themselves because Rich Dad Poor Dad is definitely a roller coaster of ideas. It
Yeah.
really is. It's one of those books that just inspires really extreme reactions. You've got millions, literally millions, who swear by it, say it changed their lives, changed their whole financial path.
Right, they credit it with everything.
Exactly. They say it unlocks their potential for wealth. But then on the flip side, you have just as many people who are pretty passionate about dismissing it. They call it, oversimplified hype, maybe lacking practical detail. Some even say it's fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
You do. But look, regardless of where you land on that spectrum, you just can't deny its impact. It's been massive. It has fundamentally shifted how countless people think about wealth, about work, about financial education itself, all around the globe. It really forces you to question the status quo. And, that alone is a powerful thing.
So, the central question for our deep dive today, the question for you, our listener, is basically this. Is Rich Dad, Poor Dad really a work of genius, like a legitimate path to financial liberation? Or is it just clever marketing? Maybe some overblown hype, designed to sell more books, more seminars. We've gone deep into a really comprehensive breakdown and review script of this book. We've pulled out the core arguments, the insights, and yeah, the controversies too. So everything we're going to share today comes straight from that source material. We're going to unpack the core philosophies, explore Kiyosaki's sometimes really counterintuitive definitions of everyday financial stuff. We'll talk about what he calls the tax secrets of the wealthy. And yes, importantly, we will tackle the criticisms head on. We want to give you a truly balanced perspective here. So are you ready for maybe a new way of looking at your money? Let's dive in.
All right. So let's start right at the heart of it. The core narrative, the foundation of his whole argument. The entire book is really built around this stark contrast between two father figures in his life. He calls them simply Poor Dad and Rich Dad. Now, his poor dad, that was his actual biological father. And by conventional standards, this guy was successful, highly educated, multiple degrees, respected government official.
Right, the kind of person society tells you has made it.
Exactly. But Kiyosaki observed that despite all the academic achievements, the stable job, his poor dad always seemed to struggle financially, often living paycheck to paycheck, wrestling with debt. And his advice, it was well-intentioned, but it often seemed to lead towards more financial constraint, not freedom.
Okay, and then the flip side is Rich Dad.
Right. Rich Dad. This was the father of Kiyosaki's best friend. And interestingly, this guy apparently dropped out of school young.
Really?
Yeah. But he became a self-made millionaire, built a significant business empire basically from scratch. Entrepreneurship, strategic investing. He was supposedly a master of practical finance, teaching young Robert lessons that went way beyond school, way beyond what his actual dad was teaching him. And what's really fascinating, what drives the whole book, is that their philosophies on money, on work, debt, life, they were polar opposites.
Wow, so two completely different roadmaps presented to them.
Totally. Two different worldviews on how to achieve success, how to get financial freedom. It wasn't just like slightly different opinions. It was a fundamental clash of paradigms. And that clash shaped his entire understanding.
Yeah, I can see how that would be powerful.
Precisely. And this contrast, it's not just a storytelling trick. It's the core thesis. Kiyosaki uses these two figures to hammer home the huge differences in mindset, in an approach to money, that he believes separates the financially struggling from the truly wealthy. Poor Dad, he embodied that traditional, maybe industrial age advice, the stuff most of us grew up hearing.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
His mantra was basically, go to school, study hard, get good grades,
Right.
find a secure job with a big company, or maybe the government.
The safe route.
Work diligently, save your money, live frugally, pay off your debts, put money in your 401k, and then, eventually you can retire safely with a pension. That's the roadmap society largely sells as success, as financial stability. It's so ingrained in us, isn't it?
It really is. It feels comfortable because it's predictable. It seems safe, conventional. We're taught that security comes from that steady paycheck, climbing the ladder, getting that job security.
That's the key phrase, job security.
Yeah. But Kiyosaki basically argues that that advice, the stuff that seems so prudent, is exactly what keeps most people trapped. It's all about relying on someone else to give you your income and therefore your security. It breeds dependency, not real financial empowerment.
And that is precisely what Rich Dad challenged. Dramatically. His philosophy was just a radical departure. Rich Dad famously advised, don't work for money. Make money work for you. Now that sounds catchy, right? But it's more than a slogan. It's a fundamental paradigm shift. It requires you to completely rethink your relationship with work, with income.
Okay, so what does that actually mean, make money work for you?
Well, Kiyosaki argues most people are stuck in what he calls the rat race. Vivid term, right? It's this perpetual exhausting cycle. You wake up, you go to work, you earn money, only to spend it almost right away. Bills, taxes, stuff you buy, liabilities. You're just barely keeping your head above water.
Yeah, treading water.
Exactly. You run harder, maybe you even earn more, but you never really get ahead financially. You're just trading your valuable time for dollars. And the second you stop showing up,
The income stops.
the income stops. It's a treadmill. And for so many people, that becomes their whole life pattern.
Boom. Yeah, that's often the first big, aha moment for people reading this book. And it hits hard because we're sold this myth of stability, right? If your entire financial security, everything, is tied to that one paycheck, if your income vanishes the moment you stop working, well, you're inherently vulnerable. You're just one economic downturn, one company layoff, maybe one health crisis, even just new tech-changing things or a new boss. You're one decision away from disaster. It forces you to confront how fragile that job security thing actually is. Kiyosaki says the rich get this. They understand this vulnerability deeply. That's why they don't focus just on earning income through their labor. They focus on acquiring assets, things that generate income without needing their constant direct effort.
Exactly. Building systems.
Right. Building systems, collecting properties, investing in businesses, things that put money in their pockets, freeing them from always needing to trade time for dollars. It's a scary thought when you really let it sink in, huh? It shifts the whole conversation from how much do I earn to how much does my money earn for me?
And understanding that fundamental difference is absolutely crucial. If you want to break free from those traditional limits, you have to get this. It's about shifting your focus. Stop thinking about being the income generator and start thinking about owning income-generating assets. Poor Dad's mindset. It emphasizes security through your job, saving diligently within that job structure, maybe a 401k. But fundamentally, that's investing in someone else's company tied to a system where you're the employee. You're a cog in the machine, pretty much. Rich Dad, on the other hand, pushes for freedom through owning the assets, understanding how money flows. It's the difference between being maybe a highly paid cog in someone else's machine and owning your own machine that churns out income for you, whether you're actively turning the crank or not. This distinction, it really sets the stage for everything else Kiyosaki talks about. He's basically saying the rich aren't necessarily smarter or luckier. They just play a different game, different rules, focusing on assets bringing money in, not liabilities taking money out.
Okay, let's unpack that next bit then, because this is where Kiyosaki drops what many people call a financial grenade. It challenges something almost everyone believes about money and wealth. He just flat out says, most people think their house or their car is an asset. And then boom, he throws that whole idea right out the window. This is where it gets really interesting, maybe even a bit uncomfortable, because it forces you to question what you thought you knew about your own finances, how you view your stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely provocative. And Kiyosaki's Rich Dad gives this very specific and, often controversial definition. It completely reframes how you look your personal balance sheet. He says, assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take it out. Sounds almost too simple.
Deceptively simple.
Exactly. But the implications, if you truly internalize this rule, they're profound. Let's look at the examples he uses. A house, for most people who live in it, not an asset by his definition.
Okay, why not?
Think about it. You've got a mortgage payment every single month. Right. Property taxes, and those usually go up. Insurance premiums, ongoing maintenance, unexpected repairs.
Always something.
Always something. That's money constantly leaving your pocket, month after month, year after year. Same logic applies to a car. Car payments, fuel, insurance, maintenance, and of course, depreciation. often rapid depreciation.
Right. Value drops the second you drive it off the lot.
Precisely.
Or-
So these are liabilities because they consistently take money out of your pocket. They consume your cash flow. They don't generate it.
Okay, but this is where people push back, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. You're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, my home is an investment. It appreciates. It's the biggest investment I'll make.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the common reaction.
Yeah.
And Kiyosaki acknowledges, yes, a home can go up in market value over time. You might realize a capital gain when you sell it down the road.
Yeah.
But his point is fundamentally about cash flow.
Yeah.
Right now, today, this month.
Mhm.
Is your home paying you every month? Is it actively putting money into your pocket?
For most homeowners living in their primary residence, probably not.
Exactly. For the vast majority, the answer is a clear no. In fact, it's doing the opposite. It's draining the account with expenses, taxes, upkeep, mortgage interest. So if it's not generating income, if it's consistently pulling money out of your bank account, then according to Rich Dad, it's a luxury maybe, or just your residence. It's not a true asset that's building your financial freedom.
Oof. That's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, especially in cultures where homeownership is like the dream, the pinnacle of success.
It really is. But Kiyosaki argues this distinction is absolutely essential for clear, strategic financial thinking. It forces you to separate things that might increase in value someday versus things that actively generate income for you right now.
Okay, so what are true assets, according to him?
He has pretty clear examples. Things that consistently generate passive income, meaning they put money into your pocket regularly without you having to constantly work for it. So he talks about rental properties, right? Where the rent coming in is more than the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and upkeep. That creates positive cash flow every month.
Okay, that makes sense.
He talks about investments like stocks that pay regular dividends or bonds that pay interest, businesses that are set up with systems and teams so they can operate and generate profit even if you're not there day to day. Those are assets. Even intellectual property, like if you have patents, copyrights, maybe a successful book or song, software, stuff that generates royalties or licensing fees, that's income without trading time.
Gotcha. So the common thread is generation of cash flow.
Exactly. They generate cash flow. They're literally putting money into your pocket, building your financial freedom bit by bit. It's about building up a portfolio of things that make money for you.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, practically speaking, beyond just the theory? Well, it kind of demands a radical reevaluation, doesn't it? Look at the stuff you own, your financial decisions. Are they really assets by Kiyosaki's definition? Or are they maybe liabilities kind of disguised as wealth, giving you a false sense of security while actually draining your resources?
Yeah, and it's not about saying owning a nice house or a car is bad. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is understanding its impact on your cash flow. And by extension, its impact on your journey towards financial freedom. If your ultimate goal is building real wealth, getting financially independent, then getting this distinction, like really getting it deep down so it shapes your decisions, that's critical. Kiyosaki basically says this clarity is step one. The foundation for building a solid financial future, one built on income flowing to you, not constantly from you.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Prepare for another intriguing beat, maybe another truth bomb that can feel kind of shocking, maybe even infuriating for the average person. Kiyosaki drops this assertion: the rich don't pay taxes like the middle class.
Ooh, yeah, this one gets people talking.
Right, and he's not talking about illegal stuff like tax evasion, that's obviously a crime. He's talking about perfectly legal strategies, strategies embedded within the financial system itself, a system that, he argues, kind of favors those who understand it and play by a different set of rules.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how the wealthy legally minimize their tax burden. He talks about the strategic use of entities like corporations, various sophisticated deductions, yeah, perfectly legal loopholes, stuff that's often just unavailable or maybe unknown to the average employee who just gets a W-2. It's not about dishonesty. It's about understanding and using the complex rulebook, the rulebook available to business owners and serious investors.
Yeah, it boils down to financial education again, doesn't it? Or maybe financial literacy, understanding the rules that govern how money actually flows. For the typical employee, the setup is pretty straightforward. And according to Kiyosaki, kind of disadvantageous from a tax perspective. You earn income, right? Salary, wages, and the government takes its cut income tax, payroll tax, all that first.
Right off the top.
Exactly. Before you even see the money hit your bank account, it's already shrunk. You work, you get taxed on the gross, and then you try to live on what's left. You pay for your house, car, food, everything else with after-tax dollars. It's very linear, very direct, feels unavoidable for most working folks. The employee's kind of at the top of the tax pyramid.
But now connect this back to the bigger picture. The wealthy, especially those owning businesses, substantial assets, they're playing on a different field, structured differently. As Kiyosaki explains it, they often earn money through their businesses or investments first. Then they strategically spend money on legitimate business expenses, reinvesting in their assets, taking legal deductions, before their net income gets calculated for tax purposes.
So the order is flipped.
Pretty much. The money often flows through their corporations first. And inside that corporation, business expenses, rent, equipment, salaries, travel, professional development, even depreciation on assets can often be deducted. This lets them invest, grow their businesses, maybe cover certain lifestyle things if they're legitimate business costs, before the taxman really calculates their personal income tax liability. It's a powerful reversal. Earn, spend on business investments, then get taxed on what's left over.
Okay. That explains that saying you always hear. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
That's exactly it. The middle class can feel absolutely crushed by taxes. Not necessarily because they don't earn enough, but because they often don't know how to structure their finances to legally minimize that tax bite. They don't know how to keep more of what they earn. They're often on this treadmill where earning more just means paying proportionally more tax without really getting ahead in terms of net wealth after everything.
Okay, but before you, the listener, jump to the totally understandable reaction, that's unfair. The system is rigged. And, it's easy to feel that way. Kiyosaki has a pretty brutal response.
Yeah, he doesn't pull punches on this one.
No. He basically says, the world won't change for you, learn the rules, or stay broke. It's stark, almost harsh, right? But it cuts through any kind of victim mentality. It really encapsulates his whole philosophy. He's not really pushing for a political change here or railing against the system itself. He's telling you to empower yourself by understanding how the financial world actually works. It's about taking personal responsibility for your own financial literacy.
He definitely adopts that stark, maybe brutal, but true perspective to hammer home personal responsibility and the immense power that comes from financial knowledge. He's not necessarily saying the system is fair to everyone, but he is saying, look, it exists, and you have a choice. You can either stay ignorant of the rules and kind of be at its mercy, always feeling squeezed, or you can educate yourself, learn how it really functions, and then use that knowledge strategically to your advantage, just like the wealthy do. It's about taking control by becoming financially literate and proactive, not just passively accepting your tax situation or waiting for politicians to change things for you. This whole section is really a powerful call to action for financial education. What you don't know can really hurt your bank account. It's an invitation to step off that default path and actually learn the rules of the money game.
Okay, here comes another bombshell. Another one from Kiyosaki that really challenges a core belief many of us hold dear, especially maybe older generations. Job security is an illusion. Now that sounds jarring, right? Maybe counterintuitive, especially when a steady job, good benefits, that's always been painted as the ultimate safe harbor, the peak of financial responsibility.
It flies in the face of conventional wisdom.
Totally. But Kiyosaki argues that relying on just one income source, no matter how stable it feels right now, is inherently risky. Just think about it. Company downsizing happens. Automation replaces jobs. Big shifts in the global economy, outsourcing, even just a change in management, a new strategy. Any of those things can pull the rug out from under you, often with very little warning.
It's true. Things can change fast.
So if your entire financial well-being hangs on someone else deciding to keep employing you, how truly secure is that? He argues that dependence actually makes you more vulnerable, not less. And the solution, the powerful idea he pushes is build multiple streams of income.
And this is where he draws that stark contrast again between the employee mindset and the entrepreneurial mindset, the traditional employee. You're constantly trading time, skills, effort for money. You clock in, do your tasks, get a paycheck. Your income stops the moment you stop working.
Right. Direct link. Time equals money.
Direct linear correlation.
Yeah.
Active labor equals income. But the rich, Kiyosaki argues, they get that true wealth, true freedom comes from creating systems. Businesses, investments, things that generate cash flow, even while they're sleeping, even on vacation, even after they stop working altogether. They build engines that produce money instead of being the engine themselves. So they're not reliant on one boss for their next meal. They're not as vulnerable to one company's fortunes. because their assets are working for them 24/7. It's about designing your life so income isn't directly tied to your physical presence or your hours worked, creating what he calls true passive income.
Which leads to that really provocative thought, maybe a bitter pill for some. If your income stops the second you stop working, Kiyosaki suggests, you're not really free. You're effectively he uses the term high-paid slave. Ouch, right?
Yeah, it's deliberately harsh, meant to provoke.
Exactly. To make you confront your reality. Are you truly in control of your financial destiny? Or is your well-being dictated by someone else's payroll or the whims of a corporate balance sheet? Kiyosaki says true financial freedom isn't just having a pile of cash. It's having your money work so hard for you that you don't have to work if you don't want to. It's about choice. Being able to choose how you spend your time, passions, family, rest, because your systems are generating income whether you're at a desk or on a beach. That's the ultimate self-sufficiency he's pointing towards.
That's exactly right. That concept of truly passive income is what really separates the financially free from those just trading time for money, day in, day out. It's about building income streams that don't need your direct, active, daily involvement. Could be well-managed rental properties, maybe with professional managers handling the headaches while you collect the checks.
Okay.
Could be a business that's grown beyond you, running on established systems with good team, or maybe just diversified investment stocks, bonds paying dividends, growing over time, maybe automatically reinvesting or providing regular payouts. Kiyosaki really champions this entrepreneurial spirit, not necessarily saying everyone must start a business, but encouraging an ownership mindset. Think like someone who creates value, builds robust, self-sustaining systems, rather than someone who only trades their labor for wages. It's a powerful shift in perspective, really underpins the whole journey he maps out.
Now, if all this talk about building systems, passive income, multiple streams, if it sounds kind of overwhelming, Kiyosaki does offer some reassurance. He's definitely not saying you need to quit your job tomorrow and suddenly become, I don't know, a real estate tycoon or a tech founder.
Right, that would be terrifying for most people.
Yeah. He gets that financial freedom is a journey, and often it's a journey of baby steps. It starts with actionable things, manageable steps you can take today, right where you are, with the resources you have now. He suggests the very first investment, maybe the most important one, is in your financial education. Just relentlessly reading, learning, maybe seminars, finding mentors, understanding those rules of the game we talked about.
Yes, absolutely. And he gives concrete examples of these baby steps too, which helps make it feel less daunting, more achievable. It could mean starting really small, like setting up an automatic monthly investment, even a modest amount, into a low-cost index fund that pays dividends.
Okay, simple enough.
Or maybe it's looking at your current living situation. Could you possibly buy a duplex or a triplex? Live in one unit, rent out the others. Turn your primary residence expense into an income-producing asset.
Interesting twist.
For some, it might be starting a small side hustle. Evenings, weekends, something you're maybe passionate about that could eventually grow into its own income stream, totally separate from your main job. Could be anything. Freelance writing, selling crafts online, consulting. The key is just to start building something that generates cash flow, no matter how small it is at first.
He makes it feel achievable, doesn't he? Which is so important. Otherwise, you just get paralyzed by the big goal. It's about building momentum, brick by brick. Even a small improvement in your financial literacy, one modest investment in a real asset by his definition, or launching a tiny side income, that stuff can start to compound over time, grow way beyond what you might imagine. The key is just taking action. Don't let the big vision of freedom freeze you up. Kiyosaki really encourages taking that first step, then the next. Keep learning, keep applying. It's a long game, yeah, a marathon, but it starts with those consistent baby steps. That practical side gives listeners a pathway to actually start doing something with these big ideas, shifting actions to match the new mindset.
Okay, but now, let's get real for a minute.
Uh-oh.
No book, no matter how impactful, is universally loved, right? Or without flaws. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad is absolutely no exception. After all this talk about radical ideas, financial grenades, it's really essential for a balanced deep dive to acknowledge, yeah, this book isn't perfect. Far from it, some would say. It's actually drawn quite a bit of strong criticism, some of it pretty pointed. So this is where it gets really interesting, because we need to look at the other side of the coin. The common critiques leveled against Kiyosaki in his work. Got to give you the full picture.
Agreed. Let's hear the counter-arguments.
Okay. Well, one of the main criticisms you hear often is that he tends to oversimplify really complex financial concepts. Critics argue that while his definitions, like assets versus liabilities, are maybe brilliant for their simplicity, for grabbing your attention, for provoking that mindset shift, they often lack the nuance needed for the real world. We'll take the house example again. Yes, it costs money month to month, liability in cash flow terms. But over decades,
Yeah.
it often has significant appreciation potential. It can be a stable store of value. The mortgage interest might offer tax deductions. Aspects his very stark definition kind of glosses over. So this oversimplification, critics say, could lead to misunderstandings. Or worse, maybe someone makes risky financial moves because they took his broad strokes as the only truth, without digging deeper into market cycles, capital needs, liquidity, risk management, the complexities of legal setups.
Hmm.
You know,
Right. It's a powerful starting point, but maybe not the complete instruction manual.
that's a good way to put it. Which leads to another common complaint. While the book is incredibly motivational, gets you fired up, gives you the why, it often feels like motivational fluff to critics. It lacks concrete, actionable, how-to advice for actually building the wealth he talks about.
So big on mindset, short on tactics.
Kind of. You get the philosophy, the framework. But if you're looking for a step-by-step guide, here's exactly how to find and finance your first rental property with no money down, or here's the precise legal structure for your corporation to maximize tax benefits, or buy these specific stocks, Kiyosaki doesn't really provide that level of granular detail in this book. It tells you what to think, what to focus on, but not exactly how to execute it in the nitty-gritty real world. So people finish inspired, but then kind of lost on the next practical steps. And critics would argue, maybe cynically, that this then leads people to his other stuff, more books, expensive seminars where the how-to might be promised.
Ah, okay. That connects to the next big one, doesn't it? The criticism about Kiyosaki himself.
Exactly. This is probably the most significant, often the most heated criticism. The accusation that he made most of his money, not really from the real estate and businesses he champions, but primarily from selling the Rich Dad, Poor Dad brand. The books, the seminars, the coaching, the games.
The information product empire.
Precisely. Critics question the actual extent of his Rich Dad experiences, the specific financial successes he claims before the book took off. They suggest his primary wealth engine has been the educational business built around the book's fame, rather than the passive income from assets he promotes so heavily. Now look, that doesn't automatically invalidate the ideas in the book, right? A good idea can still be a good idea, regardless of who says it or how they made their own fortune.
True.
But it does raise questions for some people about, the practical application of his own advice. Does he truly practice what he preaches, to the extent implied? And then, sort of related, some of his later books in the series get criticized for being really repetitive, just kind of rehashing the same core ideas without adding much new insight or practical depth. That can frustrate leaders looking for more advanced learning.
Okay. Those are all definitely fair points. Really important to lay them out there for a balanced view. It's clearly not a perfect, comprehensive financial Bible, and Kiyosaki himself isn't immune to scrutiny about his own background and business practices. But here's the thing, and maybe this is the takeaway for me. Despite those criticisms, despite the oversimplifications maybe, or the lack of detailed how-tos, I still think the core message is gold. It still somehow manages to deliver that crucial mindset reset that so many people genuinely need, especially living in a world soaked in conventional and often pretty limiting financial thinking.
I tend to agree, absolutely. Even if you walk away with just one profound thing from this book, like truly internalizing that difference between an asset and a liability, understanding how it impacts your cash flow, that alone makes the read incredibly worthwhile. The book's main value probably isn't as a detailed instruction manual or a guaranteed path to riches. It's in its almost unique ability to provoke that fundamental shift in how you think. How you think about money, about work, about independence, about your role in the economy. It just challenges those deeply ingrained beliefs, opens your mind to a different way to play the financial game. A game focused on ownership, cash flow, financial education. It pushes you towards critical thinking about societal norms, about taking personal responsibility for your finances. Even if it uses blunt language and simplified stories to get the point across, think of it like a catalyst, a powerful catalyst for financial literacy, pushing you to ask bigger questions and then proactively seek out more knowledge that really can change your life.
So, after digging into all this, what's the final verdict on Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Well, it seems clear it isn't that step-by-step guide to becoming a millionaire. It's maybe something more foundational, more profound. It really is a mindset reset. It's a book that just fearlessly tears apart conventional financial wisdom, forces you to confront your own assumptions about money, about what work really means, what true security looks like. If you're feeling tired of that perceived 9 to 5 grind, if you feel stuck in that rat race cycle, if you genuinely want to start thinking like the financially free, understanding how they operate, how they build wealth, then yeah, I'd say this book is still an absolute must read. It's like a wake-up call, but wrapped in a pretty compelling story.
Couldn't agree more. But here's the crucial part now. The real call to action for you, the listener. Don't just read it. You have to apply it. Kiyosaki's ideas, they're powerful, they're provocative, yeah, potentially life-changing, but they're just ideas on a page until you put them in action.